the APBD Research Foundation wanted to know more about who was affected with APBD and be able to contact them in the event of relevant research when research projects came up. So they wanted to create a registry. Now, typically a disease registry is just a list of patients with a particular disease or clinical profile. And they're going to have that. They're going to collect people's names and addresses and that sort of thing for people who agree to provide those things. But they're also going to collect detailed clinical information. They're going to ask patients with APBD to go to their doctors and have their doctors fill out a form, a fairly detailed form, with clinical information and information about the progress of their disease. And that will be submitted to a database, and that database will be the registry. So in addition to being a list of patients and information on how to contact them if research comes up, it's also a sort of a natural history study. People will enter information about the disease, about how their disease is. We're going to ask them to come back every year or so and say how they're doing. And over time, we'll have a sort of a basic research study on anyone who says they have APBD. In terms of timeline, it's an indefinite study. People can participate for as long as we can keep the computers running, and as long as they want to. They're free, of course, to withdraw at any time. They're also free to withdraw their consent if something happens that, for some reason, patients don't want to be a part of the registry anymore. Not only can they stop participating going forward, they have the right to withdraw their data completely, and it will be as if they never participated at all. We, of course, hope that won't happen. But as long as, essentially it's a database, a computerized database with a website for pouring the information into the database. And as long as we can keep the power on for those two computers, the registry will keep going. I think if there were 50 or 100 participants, you'd already have a tremendous resource for researchers. From that, I think you'd have a lot of power to extrapolate to the population as a whole in terms of their characteristics, in terms of the nature of their disease and the burden of their disease. And remember, the main purpose of this registry is to be a foundation, I think, on which other research is built in two ways. One, for researchers to say, well, let's say I have a drug which we think will be effective for this symptom that APBD patients suffer. So you want to see how many patients there are in what geographic areas that have that symptom to see if research in that is practical, if it can actually be conducted. So that's one set. And the other set is, of course, when such a study would be proposed, you want the registry to be able to make sure that the people who are interested in such research are informed about it. So that you can send out emails, you can send out mail, snail mail messages, things like that, so that the whole research process can be both more effective and more efficient. Because so little is known about APBD patients as a group in aggregate, if you had 100 patients, or let's keep our fingers crossed, 200 or 300, certain commonalities among those patients might become apparent, which were not apparent for an individual neurologist or urologist looking at their 1, 2, or 3 patients. And so when those happen, suddenly vistas for research open up that would not be possible otherwise. We hope that the registry will not only aid current research, but be a spur to future research, and in fact, allow for research which would not be possible otherwise.